Hi friends, my name is Millie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be bringing you my 2025 TBR and my reading goals for the new year. So in 2025, what I want to kind of do is, like I've been doing every year, so this year I did 24 books to read in 2024, so next year would be 25 books to read in 2025. And I also want to discuss my reading goals for the year as well, what number of books I want to try and read, other things like that. So let's get into my reading goals to start with, and then we will talk about the books that are on my 2025 TBR. So my reading goals. In 2024, so far, in the middle of December, I have read 227 books. That is way more than I was expecting to. I started a full-time job in 2024 and it's a very full-on one, working as a bookseller, and I didn't really think that I was going to have that much time to read. I also knew I had quite a lot of going on in 2024, lots of concerts, lots of fun things, so I really wasn't expecting to achieve more than 150 books, so that is what I had set my goal for, and then I surpassed that and now I'm at 227 books, and that's my highest number of books I've ever read in a year. The previous highest number of books that I'd read was 226, I believe, and obviously I'm still going to read more books in the last couple of weeks of this year, so I think that next year, for the first time ever, I'm gonna be ambitious and I'm gonna set my reading goal at 200 books, and we will see. I'm hoping that next year I will have the opportunity to do kind of like video ideas that I've been wanting to do. I want to do more like 24-hour readathons, so set aside a weekend whenever I have a weekend off and do 24-hour readathons on the weekend, because obviously that really helps getting through your reading goal and stuff. I'm going ambitious this year, guys. I'm feeling ambitious and I'm feeling hopeful that I will do it. Seeing as I have managed to do it for the last couple of years, I feel like I might as well just set my goal there. And to be fair, I think that works out at what, like 4 to 5 books a week, which is pretty much what I read anyway, so it should be fine. And then in terms of other goals, I also obviously want to try and read the books that I'm going to set out on this TBR. I normally never achieve my like yearly TBR. I don't think I've ever achieved it once, but we can hope and pray that I will. Who knows? I also always have a goal of trying to read series. So in 2024, I set out a goal to complete at least 15 series, and I think I'm going to stick with that goal again this year because I need to get through some series. At some point, you're going to see a 2024 series check-in video from me. That might be up before this video, it might be up after. I don't know what my schedule is going to be, but I really need to get through some series. I'm in the middle of a lot of series at the minute, so I do want to try and complete at least 15 series if I can. And speaking of completing series, I set this goal for the first time in 2024 and I'm going to try and achieve it in 2025 because I've not achieved it in 2024, and that is to try and read at least twice as many sequels as series started. So I set up like a little rubbishy spreadsheet and I tracked what books I read that were the start of a series and then what ones were sequels and then what ones were standalones. The vast majority of what I read were standalones, and I was achieving this like read twice as many sequels for quite a while, but then for some reason I just started starting series. I've still read more sequels than I started series, which is really good, but I still want to try and achieve that goal of reading at least twice as many sequels. So that's going to be another goal that I set for myself in 2025. And like always, I'm going to have the goal of trying to have a better yearly average rating than the year previously. So I believe that so far in 2024, my average rating is 3.78, and that's a worse yearly average rating than 2023, where I had 3.79 average rating. So if that doesn't go up by the end of the year, which I'm not sure it will, I think it will be stuck at 3.78 for the rest of the year. I'm not anticipating reading any 5-star predictions or anything. I'm just trying to get through some like Christmassy reads and stuff, which some of them might be 5 stars, but I'm not sure any of them will. My yearly average rating goal for 2025 is going to be 3.79. 3.8 if I can make it there. I really want to try and have a year where my average rating is 4.0 or above, but I'm quite harsh, so I don't think that I'm going to achieve that anytime soon unless I only read authors that I know I love and stuff. But 3.79 is the goal of the yearly average rating for 2025. And so that brings us on to the books I want to read. So 25 books to read in 2025. Now, 25 is such a nice round number that I've split it into some categories. Normally I just kind of go a bit willy-nilly, go like whatever I'm feeling on the day whenever I set the TBR, but I've planned it out this time, guys. I hope you're proud of me for that. So we've got 5 categories. Each of the categories has got 5 books in to make 25 books to read in 2025. And speaking of my goal of completing series and reading sequels, the first category is series to continue. So I have got 5 series that I want to continue. The first of which is to complete the Final Strife trilogy with The Ending Fire by Sarah El-Arifi. This is the final book in the Final Strife trilogy and I am scared. I love the Final Strife trilogy. It's an epic fantasy series set in a world where the colour of your blood determines your place in society, and I think like 20 years prior to the start of the first book, a kind of rebellion was planned where babies were swapped, so a certain colour of blood was swapped with another in order to, at some point in the future, break down the rules of this society. And the sequel to the first book, The Battle Drum, was one of the best fantasy sequels I've ever read. I think it was such an amazing example of a good fantasy sequel, because so many second books in a trilogy have that second book syndrome. They're just like filler books. The Battle Drum was not. And because that was so good, I'm really intimidated to read The Ending Fire, the final book in the trilogy. I feel like it's going to break me, but I'm very excited. And I just love Sarah El-Arifi so much, so this is definitely on my yearly TBR. The next one that I've got is Foxglove by Adeline Grace, and this is the sequel to Belladonna, which is a gothic YA fantasy where the main character, everyone she's sent to live with to look after her, ends up dying, and she can actually communicate with death as well. And then she's sent to like the last resort, and this family is kind of broken after the mother died, but she can see the mother's ghost, and she's got to try and figure out what happened to the mother while communicating with death and all of this. And it was a 5-star read for me. So I'm very excited to read Foxglove. I also have Wisteria, which I have not read. That's the 3rd book, but I think I'm going to reread Belladonna and then binge read Foxglove and Wisteria all together, and maybe do it over a weekend and just immerse myself completely in this world, because I'm so excited. I also just think these covers are just absolutely stunning. We then have another sequel that I am so intimidated by. It's Brother Song by TJ Klune. This is the final book in the Green Creek series, and the first 3 books have been emotionally devastating, so I'm sure this one's going to be the same. This series is about werewolves basically, and each book in the series follows like a different couple. You have different perspectives, and they're all just traumatizing to read, but I love them and I love the characters. They're also really humorous at the same time as being devastating, so I'm very intimidated by this, especially because it's big, but I am really excited to read this at the same time. We then have Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is the sequel to Better Than the Movies, which I read in August, I believe. Completely impulse purchase, bought it one day, read it literally the next day, and it was a 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved it. It just warmed my heart. It was one of the best YA contemporaries I've read. And now we have this sequel that I think is gonna destroy me, because this is a second chance romance following the same couple, you know? So yeah, I'm nervous. I'm not sure if there's gonna be a happy ending, but I love these characters, so I'm sure I'm gonna cry at some point while reading this one. And we then finally have Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I read the first 2, Done and Dusted and Swift and Saddled, back to back in a 24-hour romance readathon, and absolutely loved them. And this is the 3rd book. The 4th book is coming out in April, I believe, and I really want to try and get this one read before that, because I just love this series, love these characters, and I'm really excited for this one, especially because we've been kind of having hints that this couple is going to get together since book 1, and this is like enemies to lovers, best friend's brother, and I'm so here for this, so I'm very excited for this sequel. cool. Now with this next category, I'm trying to anticipate the fact that I'm such a mood reader, and I've gone with most anticipated releases for 2025. I'm going with that because I'm such a mood reader, and when I see new releases coming out and people raving about them and stuff, I'm just like, I really want to pick that up right now. So I'm trying to anticipate my doing that by putting these books on this TBR. So I've been very lucky to have been sent some really amazing proofs for next year that I haven't got around to reading yet, and I'm really ashamed of that because they are such anticipated releases for me. So let's go in with Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reid. This is pitched as like The Last of Us meets The Hunger Games, and I'm so here for this. I love Ava Reid. I talk about her in like every single video. A Study in Drowning was one of my favourite reads of 2023, and I don't stop thinking about it ever. So Fable for the End of the World seems like a great book to put on this TBR. This is coming out in March, and I am very excited to have gotten this proof copy. I actually won this when I went to Bookfest at Waterstones Piccadilly back in August, and I'm so happy to have this in my hands, and I just really need to get around to reading it because I know I'm gonna love it because it's Ava Reid and it's like two of my favourite things melded together. So the next one I don't have a physical copy of yet, but I obviously will be. I've pre-ordered it, and it is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I'm so excited for the next Emily Henry book. I love Emily Henry with my whole entire heart. If you don't know that about me, where have you been? I love Emily Henry. Beach Reader is probably like my favourite book of all time. And I've gotten so many friends to read Emily Henry now. Like friends who are not normally readers, I've been like, you need to read Emily Henry, and I've gotten them on my Emily Henry agenda. I just love spreading the love for Emily Henry. So I've said Emily Henry a lot in the last 10 seconds. Great Big Beautiful Life is inspired, I believe, by The Last Great American Dynasty by Taylor Swift, which is one of my favourite songs ever. And it's basically following these two writers who are trying to win the chance to tell the story of this... Was she an actress or something? I can't remember. And she's only telling each of them bits and pieces. They can't compare what they've gotten because of NDAs, but they have like sparks flying between them, and it just sounds amazing. So that's got to be on here. Even though I don't have a physical copy yet, that's got to be on this list because I'm going to want to read it. As soon as I have a copy in my hands, however that happens, I'm going to want to read it. The next one, also inspired by a Taylor Swift song, weirdly, is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stephen. This one is inspired by Exile by Taylor Swift, also one of my favourite songs ever. And this is basically following two people who have fallen in love in every lifetime. It spans lifetimes, which sounds amazing, but they've also killed each other in every single lifetime, and I don't even need to hear anymore. That's coming out in February, and I just know that this is going to blow up when it comes out. Like, this is going to be one of the biggest books of the year, and I'm so excited to read it. Speaking of biggest books of the year coming out in February, I have got a copy of Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli. This is the sequel to The Crimson Moth, and that is a YA fantasy. It's following a witch and a witch hunter. The witch hunter doesn't know that Rune is this vigilante witch, and he's hunting her, and she's right under his nose, and so good. It's top tier. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. I possibly do want to reread The Crimson Moth before I read Rebel Witch, just to be fully in the world, but I am so excited for this sequel, especially after how The Crimson Moth ended. And then finally for this category, I have got Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan. This is coming out in January 2025, and this is a standalone romantasy set in the world of Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which is a duology that I just absolutely love. So beautifully written, and I feel like this is going to be just as gorgeous. It's following like the god of war and a mortal who has to travel to the immortal realms, and it just sounds amazing. I love Sue Lynn Tan, and I'm so here for this. Like, and even just the proof copy is just like one of the most gorgeous proof copies I've ever seen. So I'm very excited to see how the finished copies are gonna look. Now the next category, because I mainly started my book collection in 2020 during lockdown. I had quite a few books before then, but nowhere near as many as I started collecting in 2020. And being that 2025 is 5 years on from then, I've decided to create a category to force myself to read some of the books that I got in 2020 that I haven't got around to reading yet. So this is like my TBR Veterans category, I guess you would call it. And we're starting off that with series Moonlight by Jen Bennett. Now, this is a YA contemporary, and I've read, I think, every single other Jen Bennett YA contemporary, perhaps, that I own anyway, apart from this one. And I got this one in 2020, and I love Jen Bennett, and I don't know why haven't got around to reading this one yet. This one kind of has like a bit of a mystery element to it. So the main character experiences life through her favourite mystery novels, and then she takes a summer job working the night shift at a historic hotel, and everything changes. She meets the hotel's distractingly good-looking driver, Daniel, and they find themselves caught up in a real-life mystery of their own because a reclusive writer is secretly meeting someone at the hotel, and our main character Birdie is determined to get to the bottom of it. So I think it sounds very cute. I love the sound of anything to do with Jen Bennett, so hopefully I like this one. The next one is one I'm ashamed I haven't read yet. It is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. Now, I'm pretty sure that the third book in this series, Oathbound, is coming out in 2025, so I really need to get this series started. Now, Legendborn is... so it's a YA fantasy, and you're following Bree, who... her mother dies in an accident and she wants to escape, so she goes to this like residential program for bright high schoolers. Then she witnesses a magical attack her very first night on campus, and her own magic is like unlocked, and she has to infiltrate the Legendborn. And I'm pretty sure that it is a retelling or like inspired by King Arthur, so I'm very excited. Everyone who's read this seems to love it. Hopefully I will as well. Then a book that was on my 2024 yearly TBR that I didn't get around to reading, but I decided to put it back onto this year's TBR because I've had it since 2020 and I just need to read it at this point. It's Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I've read Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, and I did enjoy that one. This one is more, I think it's more kind of thrillery. You have this community that's like perfect, and then this single mother arrives and she has no regard for any of the rules of this community, and there's like a custody battle, and it sounds very interesting. I'm not sure that I'm that drawn to reading it since I first picked it up. I got it from a charity shop, which I think is why I bought it, so I just need to get around to reading it, and then I can decide whether I'll like it enough to keep it or just unhaul it. This one could fit into the series to continue category, but I've put it in this one because I've had this book since 2020, and that is Champion by Marie Lu. This is the third book in the Legend series, which is a YA dystopian series. I loved the first book. I didn't love the second book as much, and I think that's why I've been put off of reading the third and sort of final book. I know there is a fourth book in the series, but depending on how I feel about this one, I don't think I will pick that one up. Maybe. If I love Champion, then maybe I will, but I don't own that one, so we're just going with this for now. And yeah, it's a YA dystopian series that was like a classic at the time it came out, and it was like a cult classic at the time that it came out, and I had never read it at that time. So when I first read Legend, I loved it. But I just didn't love Prodigy, the sequel, so I'm nervous about this one, but I've had it for so long, so I just need to read it now. And finally, we have got The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is the start of a science fiction series, and everyone seems to really enjoy this one. I'm just not a lover of science fiction, which I think is why I've been putting off picking this one up. It's about a sort of spaceship, I believe, called the Wayfarer, and there's adventures in the far off corners of the galaxy. I think it's a lot to do with like found family, and the crew are offered the job of a lifetime to build a hyperspace tunnel to a distant planet, but they have to survive the long journey through war-torn space without endangering any of the fragile alliances that keep the galaxy peaceful. I like the sound of it. I love found family, but I just don't really love science fiction. I don't love books set in space, so we'll see. But everyone seems to really enjoy this, so hopefully I will as well. The fourth category that I've got is BookBox books. So I have been subscribed to BookBoxes since 2020, and there are books from then that I haven't read. Now, I used to be subscribed to Owlcrate, and I had them for about a year, I believe it was. Then I started my Fairyloot subscription, so I started off with the YA box, then I got the adult fantasy box as soon as that started, then I got the romantasy box as soon as that started, and there are, I think, over 50 BookBox books from all of my subscriptions that I haven't read yet, which is really, really bad because obviously it's expensive and I need to know if I'm enjoying the subscriptions, but I can't know that without reading them. So I have got 5 books that I got from book subscriptions to read in 2025 that will hopefully kick me into gear of actually reading them. I mean, who knows, but maybe it will. So we'll start off with Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Now, I have read the Caraval trilogy, absolutely loved it, and I know a lot of people start off with Once Upon a Broken Heart, but I do think that's incorrect. I think you need to start with Caraval just to get to grips with the world. You're going to get spoiled for events that happen in Caraval if you read this. You're not going to know what's going on, so I do think you have to read Caraval first. But anyway, so I've read all of Caraval, and now I feel like I can read Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is the gorgeous Fairylit edition, which is just absolutely stunning and coveted, I know, and I'm ashamed that I haven't read this yet. This is a new trilogy set in the world of Caraval, and it's following Evangeline, who I believe makes a deal with fate. Yeah, so Evangeline strikes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, and in exchange for his help he asks for free kisses to be given at the time and place of his choosing. Now I know that so many people love this series, and I think I will as well. I'm just like, I think I've been putting off reading it because what if I've overhyped it in my head? Do you know what I mean? But I think I'll love this. The next one was a Fairyloot Romantasy pick, I believe, and it is The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. And the reason I really want to read this is because there's a cat on the cover. Cats and libraries, what more could you want? And I don't think I've actually read any of the Romantasy books yet. And I've been subscribed since it started in April or whatever it was, so that's really, really bad. So I really need to start reading some of the romancy ones in case I'm just wasting my money. I don't think I will be, because I love these editions, but anyway. So our main character, Kirsa, I don't know if that's how you say it, is trapped in a library with a monster. She's a thief, and I think she steals from him, and now she's trapped in this library. So by trespassing, she's broken the peace treaty between monsters and humans, but instead of killing her, he offers her a job instead and a chance to find out who she really is. So I'm very excited to read this one. There is also a sequel coming out 2025, so I need to read this before the sequel comes out. It's also just, it's so pretty. It's so shiny. Now the next one I've had since I was subscribed to Owl Crate. This I believe was the May 2021 pick, perhaps. It was an early one, and it's The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joanne He. And when I first saw the cover reveal for this book, I was obsessed because the cover is just so stunning, and I was really excited when Owl Crate included it in the subscription, but then I never got around to reading it. So I feel this is one that I need to put on this yearly TBR. I believe it's a little bit sci-fi. I think it's set in a kind of futuristic world, and main character C she woke up on the shore of this abandoned island 3 years ago. She's no idea what her life was like before, how she came to be on this island. She's built an android for company, and her only memory is that somewhere she's got a sister, and it's up to her to escape the island and find her. And then the sister, I believe we also have her perspective. There's like eco-cities on Earth, and she's a STEM prodigy, and there's like man-made disasters that rock the planet. I think it's really a story of sisterhood, and I'm excited for that. I just don't know. I feel like I haven't heard many things about this since it came out, which obviously was like 4 or 5 years ago, so hopefully I'll enjoy this. But yeah, I've just had this for so long, I really need to read it. One that I see everybody loving is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is the start of a duology, the Shepherd King duology, I believe it is, and everyone just seems to absolutely love this duology, and I'm hoping that I will as well. It's giving me like almost belladonna vibes. It's like gothic, YA fantasy. I'm very excited. I've no idea what it's about other than that. Oh, okay, so an ancient spirit is trapped inside of Elspeth's head. She calls him the Nightmare. He keeps her secrets, but nothing comes for free, especially magic. She meets a mysterious highwayman on the forest road and is thrust into a world of shadow and deception, and they embark on a dangerous quest to cure the town of Blunder from the dark magic infecting it. And at the same time, the Nightmare is slowly taking over Elspeth's mind. That sounds very exciting. I love anything kind of gothic and dark. Hopefully I'll like this one. And finally for this category, we have got a recent book box book from Fairy Loot, which is The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. Catherine Doyle co-wrote the Twin Crown series with Catherine Webber, which I absolutely loved. I read that series in a week, fell in love with it, just top tier YA fantasy, and this is another new YA fantasy from her, and I'm really excited for this one. I think it's kind of like Throne of Glass vibes. It's following, is she an assassin? Okay, so you've got two, I think it's like Throne of Glass, but also kind of a bit maybe sort of Romeo and Juliet-ish kind of thing. So you have these two enemy guilds, the Cloaks and the Daggers, who are the thieves and the assassins. And on the night of her mother's murder, 18-year-old Seraphine runs for her life. She seeks sanctuary with the Cloaks, her heart set on revenge, but there is a dark-haired boy whose quicksilver eyes follow her around the city, and nothing can prepare Sarah for the moment she finally comes face to face with Ransom, heir to the Order of Daggers. It sounds really good. I know that I love Catherine Doyle's writing, so I'm hopeful that I'll love this one. And I just think this is such a pretty edition, and I just knew I wanted to pick this up soon. So that's why I put it on this TBR. Okay, and now we're on to the final category, which I decided to do something kind of like fun and spontaneous in the moment, where I had to be held accountable for whatever happens. So I am going to, let me get my iPad. Okay, so on my iPad, I have a random wheel generator, which has all of the books on my TBR. So it's all of the books on my physical TBR, but also all the ones I have on the Kindle app on my iPad, so anything could come up. And I decided to, for this final category, to randomly generate them in the moment, on camera, just to see what happens, because I was tired of making decisions, and I quite like to just be randomly told what I'm going to read. I use this wheel quite a lot throughout the year, and so I just decided to do that. So obviously if anything comes up that has already been on this TBR, will just spin again. So let's see what happens. So the first one that we've got is Consider Yourself Kissed by Jessica Stanley. I figured this was probably going to be coming up. I was probably going to be punished with this. Okay, I found it. So I figured I was probably going to be punished with this one coming up. Consider Yourself Kissed by Jessica Stanley. This is an adult contemporary, I'm hesitant to call it a romance because I don't think it is, that was sent to the shop that I work at and no one else wanted it, so I figured I'd just take it home. I loved the title of it. I was intrigued by the fact that there's a pigeon on the cover, but then in my recent book haul I read the synopsis of it for the first time and I really didn't want to read it after that. But that's probably a good thing that's ended up on this TBR because it will force me to read it. So this is an arc, it's coming out in May. You're following Coralie, who meets Adam. Now, 10 years on from them meeting, getting together, something important is missing from the life that they've built, and it's set against an eventful decade that included the soap opera of 5 prime ministers plus Brexit and COVID, and it puts the subjects of love and family on a grand stage, showing how the intimate dramas in our homes inescapably compete for energy and attention with the shared public dramas of our times. Now, the reason that I didn't want to read this after reading the synopsis of it is because of the fact that it's very clearly going to discuss what's going on in like the British political landscape, and considering the fact that all of that is still going on, I think that this book could very quickly date itself, and also all of that stuff is still going on, so it's all still very fresh and raw, like the consequences of Brexit, the traumas of COVID. So I'm not really sure that that's really for me, but that's a good reason for it to be on this TBR. So number 1 of the randomly generated is Consider Yourself Kissed by Jessica Stanley. Okay, so the next one going to be, oh, okay, so it's come up with a sequel, but I'm gonna make it be the first book in the series because I haven't read the first book, so I'll go and get that and then we can discuss. So the sequel that it came up with was The House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper, which is the sequel to The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper, which I haven't read. So this is the first book in the series, and this is a historical fiction. I believe that this was actually on my 2024 TBR that I never got around to reading, so it's good for it to go back onto this one. This is set in Pompeii, and I am really excited to read the series because so many of my colleagues, I feel like, have read it and really enjoyed it. And it's set in Pompeii, and it's a story of sisterhood following Amara, whose father's death plunged her family into poverty, so now she's owned by a man she despises and lives as a slave in Pompeii's most infamous brothel. And she's surrounded by women whose humour and dreams she shares, and she comes to realise that everything in this city has its price, but how much will her freedom cost? So I'm really excited. I feel like this is going to be such a well-researched historical novel as well, and I just love the cover as well, so hopefully I will enjoy this one. So the next one, what have we got? I'm scared. Ooh! That is a great choice. The Bones Beneath My Skin. Okay, I am so happy that it's come up with that. The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. This is coming out in February, and this is the next TJ Klune book. And I love TJ Klune, obviously. And this one, I believe, is one of his more sci-fi standalone novels. And you're following Nate, who in 1995 is at a loose end. He goes to his family's cabin because his parents are dead, he's lost his job, his brother's disowned him. So he goes to the cabin in Oregon. And the cabin should be empty, but it's not. And inside is Alex and an extraordinary little girl who calls herself Artemis Darth Vader. And Alex and Nate begin to bond over how special Artemis is, but they discover that powerful forces are closing in who want to control her. And I just love the sound of it. Love a new TJ Klune, so I'm very happy that this one has ended up on this TBR. And the next book, the fourth book on this category. Ooh, great choice. I'll go and grab that one. Okay, so the one that was picked was the Woodsmoke Women's Book of Spells by Rachel Greenlaw. Now, this came out in October. This is the proof edition. I never got around to reading it, but I'm really excited to read this one. And it's basically witchy, which, you know, I love a good witchy book. So it's following Carrie, who expects trouble when she returns to Woodsmoke after 10 years. What she does not predict is the beautiful stranger who walks into her life with the first frost and with whom Carrie begins to fall in love. But there's an old tale that weaves through the town, which is that a stranger who appears as the snow falls only to disappear in the spring leaves behind a broken heart. Bound to her family's book of spells and a deep magic that flows from the mountains, Carrie's family warns that her new love is a curse who will disappear when the frost falls. If Carrie is to embrace the power a Morgan woman carries, she must trade something in return. Love the sound of that. I love how floppy it is as well. I love a floppy bit. I'm excited for this one. This will be my first Rachel Greenlaw book actually, so hopefully I will really enjoy it. Okay, and the final book in this category is going to be this. Ooh, not what I was expecting. Let me go and grab that one as well. Okay, and the final book that we've got for this category is Yerba Buena by Nina LaCour. This is the first adult book by Nina LaCour. I've read a couple of YA books by her. This is following Sarah Foster, who runs away from home at 16. She leaves behind not only the losses that have shattered her world, but the girl she once was, capable of trust and intimacy. Years later, in Los Angeles, she is a sought-after bartender renowned as much for her brilliant cocktails as for the mystery that clings to her. Across the city, Emily Dubois is in a holding pattern. In her 7th year and 5th major as an undergraduate, she yearns for the beauty and community her Creole grandparents have cultivated, but is unable to commit. On a whim, she takes a job arranging flowers at the glamorous restaurant Yerba Buena and embarks on an affair with the married owner. When Sarah catches sight of Emily one morning at Yerba Buena, their connection is immediate. But the damage both women carry and the choices they have made will pull them apart again and again. At once exquisite and expansive, astonishing in its humanity and heart, Yerba Buena is a love story about two women finding their way in the world. I love the sound of that. It's also pretty short, so should be fairly easy to read. And that brings us to the end of my 25 books to read in 2025 and my reading goals. So let me know what books are on your yearly TBR if you've made one, or what you think of any of the books that are on mine. Which ones should I prioritise? And also let me know what your reading goals are for the new year. What do you have a specific reading goal, like 200, 100, 50 books, whatever? And any other goals that you've got for the reading year ahead of us. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. If you wanted to follow me on my Goodreads or my Bookstagram, the links are down in the description below, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!